Check, check. Hello. We would like to welcome our filmmakers in the audience from our Scares, Laughs, and Mystery Block. And I believe we have some of the cast from Duplicity, the last film, here as well. I believe JT is here. We may have one or two filmmakers join us via Zoom as well. Hello, JT. Thank you so much. JT is the filmmaker behind The Haunted Baby Carriage from Hell. And we have Nick Alexander, who directed Duplicity. We have some of the actors from Duplicity, as well as some of the writers as well. Do we have anyone from Whispers, Zombie Chase, or Moleman? I know Roland wanted to be here, the director of Zombie Chase, who was not able to make it because he got a last-minute acting gig in Portland. Come on down. Hello. So we do need to hello, Lindsay. We do need to preface that Duplicity obviously was shot here in Klamath Falls. A film that's been a long time in the making, and we do also have to preface the fact that this film got into the festival by its own merits for filmmaking, but the fact that half the cast was comprised of Klamathville Board of Directors members doesn't hurt. Bowen, as well as Wayne and Lindsay, are also board of directors members for Klamath Film, the organization that puts on this film festival. So we'll certainly touch base on Duplicity here. Oh, and I see Dustin join us as well. Hello, Dustin. Hi there. Hey. Dustin is the director behind The Mall Man. So hello, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Perfect timing. So I want to start first with JT here. JT, it's been wonderful getting to know you this weekend. Thank you. It was wonderful to hang out with you last night and find out that we're both huge fans of B Camp silly horror films, which your film is a loving tribute to. We don't share comments from our judging process, but I'll make an exception because one of the running themes when The Haunted Baby Carriage from Hell came our way was, this film is way better than it has any right to be based on the title. I loved your film. As a fan of 80s horror slashers and classic horror tropes, your film takes such a funny twist because we've seen haunted sentient objects become the killer. We saw one earlier today, whereas a murderous sea stand at SOU took someone's life in the film Checkout. But why a baby carriage?
Funny story. I was actually at a epic garage sale for a antique mall. They were having this big sale, and I went in and I saw the baby carriage, and it was $60. And I was like, that baby carriage is awesome, but it's $60. What am I going to do with that? And so I just kind of left it, and I did some other shopping. And then on Sunday of the epic garage sale, everything that was left was 50% off. And so I went back, and the baby carriage was still there. And I was like, now it's $30, and I had no excuse. I had to buy it. And so I bought it, and then it sat in my basement for about a year. And then I was like, I should do something with that baby carriage. And that's kind of how the whole process began, was just finding it in a vintage shop and going, that's really cool.
And I do want to remind our audience, we have a microphone there and a microphone there. If you have a question for any of our filmmakers, feel free to walk up to that and we'll point you out. And so for that film too, there's also such a fun twist on it. It's very reminiscent in a way of the Beetlejuice film, in that it's supposed to be this haunted, evil thing. In fact, it's even changing around the magnets on the fridge to fear me and I'm scary, and no one cares.
Yeah.
It's such a fun little twist on that. What made you, as a fan of classic horror and slashes and all that, what made you take that twist on it instead?
Well, I can't take full credit. My producing partner who played Spencer in the film, Dylan Wayne Lawrence, and my housemate at the time was also a filmmaker. We kind of spitballed a bunch of really funny kind of things. And it'd be funny if the baby carriage did this. It'd be funny if the baby carriage did that. And then we got into this thing about, well, what if the baby carriage did all these things and nobody gave a shit? And so that's kind of how that process came about. It was just like, it can do all these really scary, creepy things, but they don't care,
And Dustin, hello, sir. Thank you so much for joining us from Portland. We greatly appreciate it. Your film, The Mall Man, was absolutely hilarious, shot in black and white, which is also a nice touch to kind of add to the nostalgia of it, as being from the generation who spent way too much time at the mall growing up. This is both a loving tribute and also hilarious in the just the desperation of retail to try to compete with Amazon and all of the convenience that is online shopping. So what motivated you to make this film about someone desperate to try to keep a mall alive?
Yeah. Can you hear me there okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I grew up in a city in Western Illinois, and we had one mall, and that's where we hung out as teenagers, as Gen Xers. And over the last few years, every time I've gone home to visit friends and family and stopped by that mall, it has gotten bleaker and bleaker. The stores all started to shutter. And then they started to have leaks in the roof. So you would see these pails and buckets stationed around the hallways. And then they started shutting off the lights to various parts of the mall. And then they started shutting off the heat. So you would walk to parts of the mall and it would be cold. And it was just like seeing the slow deterioration. And while obviously that's not the case for all shopping malls, I do know as a professor who gets, regularly deals with 18-year-olds, that they don't have the experience of the mall as a social destination. And in fact, they don't have many places, physical spaces that act as common social destinations, because most of their social interaction happens online. And so it's just, it's an ode to a time where we did things differently. And it's not necessarily to say that it was better, but in many ways, maybe it was.
There's convenience, but there's also a lot of nostalgia that is wrapped up in the physical shopping aspect. So I do appreciate you bringing that to the table for us. So wonderful film. Thank you, sir. Let's talk Duplicity.
Thank you.
Explain. Yeah.
Can somebody call 911? Because the guy that was the villain in Duplicity was here. I talked to him for quite a while.
He's gone missing.
I think she killed him again.
Let's get introductions going down with our members of Duplicity here, starting with Nick.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Nick Alexander. I'm the director of Duplicity and also the owner of Nick Alexander Films, a local video production company here in Southern Oregon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carson Newman, and I'm the producer of Duplicity.
I'm Lindsay Parrish. I played Rebecca Martin.
She's the bad person. Wayne Sweat. I was an actor.
So your film has been a long time coming, and this was the world premiere for it. The cast had never seen it until a couple of minutes ago, right? So I know you've waited a very, very long time to see your performance, so I hope it was worth the wait on that. This film is also really fascinating. We do have production that happens here in Klamath. Most of your work is very centered around commercial work, which is very, vitally important and pays the bills for a lot of the filmmakers in the room too. We have our creative projects, but the things that are paying rent is local commercials and ads and business profiles. But what made you want to do a creative narrative film?
Yeah, great question. I think over the last 7 years of Nick Alexander Films, we have focused primarily on commercial work because that was what does pay the bills. But from a creative standpoint, I chatted with my team and Carson, Riley, the editor in the crowd, and we've been wanting to do narrative for a while. That's where our vision is, looking toward the future. And so, of course, as filmmakers, we always dream and hope, oh, maybe one day we can make a narrative. And so I said, well, let's do it. So these guys, Carson, Riley, and me, we put our heads together, came up with some ideas, worked hard, and made it happen. So I think for us, this project was truly experimental. It was our first narrative film, and of course, we learned a lot through it, and just are super proud of the results and everyone that was involved.
And as Ray mentioned in our previous Q&A just a little while ago about how there's talent that has worked professionally, and for whatever reason they relocate to Southern Oregon, and we have this abundance of talent. We have individuals who appeared in your film, not only aspiring young actors, but who have had quite a bit of experience in the industry. Lindsay, you've had a rather extraordinary resume. You want to talk about some of your background a little bit?
Oh, goodness. Well, I was out in Los Angeles for a good part of 15 years. The main thing that I like to do out there was stunt doubling and doing a lot of stunt work in commercials, like car commercials and such. But I love the acting side of it. And so that constantly calls back to my heart.
And Wayne, certainly you're no stranger to acting. You're one of the regulars in Southern Oregon, appearing in productions all throughout Medford, Grants Pass, Ashland, and here in Klamath. So, and you kind of fell into acting too, right?
Well, it was basically a dare. It's like, yeah, dare me. See what happens. Yeah, it only happened about I don't know, 20 years ago. So I'm a late bloomer in more than one way. But yeah, I absolutely fell in love with acting and just can't get enough of it.
And Carson, with your work on it, Nick mentioned the idea of doing a narrative that's a step away from so much of the work that Nick Alexander Films does. But what was your perspective in wanting to delve into it, and why a murder mystery?
Yeah, that's a great question. Nick and I have been lifelong friends, and we've talked a lot about movies and the cinematography and the editing and the writing behind some of our favorite films. And so when he reached out to me and said, do you want to make a movie? I was like, well, yeah, you know the answer to that. And I didn't know exactly how it was all going to come together because he's doing his commercial work and he doesn't have a big team. But I remember getting ready to write the script and everything and thinking about ideas. And he said, all right, well, coordinate with Riley. And so I did. And we had a good session, actually over at Bravada, where we talked ideas and everything, and got to know each other a little better. And, figured out that we were both big nerds and both weirdos in our own way. So yeah, then we patched together a schedule and a time to come together to write the script. And as we started to think about ideas, with talking with Nick, we knew we wanted to do some sort of thriller-esque type thing. I really like psychological thrillers. And some of my favorite films are indie thriller, psychological thrillers that don't seem to go anywhere, but like end up having such a meaningful mental impact on the viewer. And so I think with Duplicity, we got that. And yeah, as we worked on the script, it just kind of came together to go, all right, thriller, a little mystery, a little murder, it just all kind of came together. It all just kind of fell into place.
Wonderful. I see we have a question over here.
So this question actually started out between a conversation that JT and I had about baby carriage, but I thought, we have three narrative films represented here, so I can really jump that question to all three. JT, you had mentioned we were talking about the location for your film. It's your house. And then I noticed there's ugly painted walls in there. So I'm wondering, was that set dressing or was that how it was? And so can move that same sort of set dressing challenges or stories for the other ones, because I know the mall, I don't imagine all those clothes were like that. So anyway, start with JT on set dressing.
Yes, my walls are like that. In fact, when it's a rental, I'm renting the house, and my housemate and I, when we first saw the place, it had those walls, and we're like, "That's amazing! We love those." They're so kind of interesting and kind of cool. And the homeowner was going to paint the walls, and we said, "No, don't do that." And so we think that she gave us the house because it saved her thousands of dollars of having to paint the walls. So she didn't have to paint the walls, and she gave us the house.
Wonderful. Dustin, do you want to chime in on your choices with set dressing for the Mall Man?
Well, all those shots of the mall were actually just taken at a mall, and I didn't adjust anything. So I found those aisles where there were clothes just piled everywhere and shoes thrown all over the floor. And, after a weekend of vigorous shopping, I shot it during the holiday season. So there were a lot of people there, even though it doesn't look like it in the film, because I framed up the shots to make them all look dead, because it had to be so for that narrative to work. It was actually pretty busy, and there were a lot of people making a lot of messes. So they did all the set dressing for me.
Terrific. And Nick, and the rest of the crew up here, let's talk about location selections and set dressing.
Absolutely. The beauty of Duplicity was that it was completely filmed here in Klamath Falls and in Klamath County. And of course, the cast was from Klamath Falls, and most of the crew was from Klamath Falls. And then we had support from the community, the PD, fire, sheriff. So it all worked out. For instance, where you see most of the film taking place in that home, that was some friends of ours just actually down the street. So everything for the most part was just natural. And Carson and me, and again, my teammate Riley, we walked into the Levesque home, and quickly we saw a lot of potential in that home, and there wasn't much that we actually had to change in order to make it perfect for a murder mystery.
And your film also is a bit of a testament to the genuine enthusiasm in our community here in Klamath for filmmaking. As someone who came from Hollywood, there was a lot of jaded, like, oh great, another street closure, I have to move my car. Lindsay, you know all too well, there's a detour again for filming again. And when I came up here, Nick, like the cooperation you got from police and fire, they just open their doors and be like, yeah, do whatever. We'll happily be a part of it. I've gone location scouting around town, and I see an interesting house, and I'll stop and just knock on the door with my business card and say, hi, can I come take a photo of your bathroom and bedroom and basement? And they look at me funny. I say, it's for a film. And they'll go, oh, well, it's for a film. Come on in, Do you want to knock down a wall? We'll move into a hotel for 3 weeks. It's astounding how much genuine enthusiasm there is for filmmaking. It's still new. It's still fresh in this area, including a few in our audience, including Ray, who just asked that question, has taken the time to come over the hill and make a film here. Do you want to just add to that in terms of the reactions when you asked for, hey, can we get support for this or that for a film idea?
100%. I think that was what was most surprising and wonderful, was there was just that constant and immediate support from the community. So when Carson, Riley, and me were putting together this story, of course, we needed to do a casting call. And we had great results there. Right when we met, Wayne, for instance, we said, yep, he's the one. It didn't take too much. And so anyway, the cast was great. We had a great turnout there. And then of course, at all the different locations, like I mentioned, the police department, fire, I remember giving them a call, sitting down with them. And it wasn't a matter of if it could happen, it was a matter of what we needed. And that is a huge testament to Klamath County and of course, the city of Klamath Falls, because me, of course, originally from Medford, coming here to Klamath Falls and setting up shop for 3 years and continues to do that. It was amazing to see the support. And so huge just shout out to all those that supported this film in the small and the big ways.
Well, and speaking of big changes, we do need to note real quick, and we'll get you, Wayne. Nick here is it not only expecting his first child, but also just bought his first house.
That's true. That's true.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wayne, you had something you wanted to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to throw it out to the audience that if anybody ever had any aspirations of acting at any level, Nick and his crew are some great people to work with. I've been on 40 or so different productions and worked with a lot of different directors and teams, and these guys are top notch.
I can second that. I feel like the professionalism really mocked, it was the same as Los Angeles, just everything from the production to makeup to even the editing. It all felt very similar to Los Angeles, except that this became more like a family by the end. And we weren't really filming all that long. It was just a day here and a day there. But by the end, you just felt like you really wanted to keep these people in your lives. And that's something that I really didn't feel in Hollywood. It was more like, okay, see you later. Maybe we'll work together again in the future. But they really brought a sense of family to it as well.
So when the producer and myself was hanging out in the cast trailer, was that special because you didn't have that in Hollywood?
Dustin, I want to check in again regarding Mall Man, because you made some interesting choices with this film. In one, shooting it all black and white, 2, having it be a one-person show, and 3, having your main character break the fourth wall and talk directly to the audience. Can you go into detail about those choices in the course of production of your film?
Yeah, well, as it came together, it started to make me think about Arthur Miller and Death of a Salesman, and sort of like the independent film of the 1960s, especially like the work of John Cassavetes. And I just thought, if the thing looks kind of gritty and kind of homemade, that kind of works with what this guy is trying to do, where he's trying to DIY himself out of this problem, which is, in effect, saving his job by saving his mall. And it also became clear, I didn't write the script, but as the script was developing, that he wasn't just making a plea to these, other unseen characters on the phone. He was making a plea to the audience watching the movie to save these spaces, not just malls, but any kind of physical space with where we do social interaction in person.
We lost picture, but we can still hear you. So bear with us, Dustin.
Yeah, no worries. You mean you've lost my head up on your movie?
Yeah,
screen?
we lost picture, but we can still hear you. Oh, okay. So just bear with us. It's inevitable. There would be some technical glitch right at the very end, right? Of course. And then Haunted Baby Carriage from Hell. One thing that certainly exists in the horror realm and even the horror comedy realm is one good idea deserves 10 more films just like it. There's been more Friday the 13th and Halloween and just those film series seems to never die. And from what I heard, this is not the last we'll see of the Haunted Baby Carriage from Hell, correct?
Correct. Actually, so we're looking at doing like a trilogy of little films, and the next film takes place camping because Spencer and Cameron missed the ship for their cruise, and so they decided to go camping instead. And then out in the woods, they meet a Blair Witch type film crew trying to do a documentary, and then the baby carriage is like living in the woods because it's been off the grid since it's been kicked out of the house. And so it's the baby carriage kind of ends up being like the Blair Witch of the woods, but doesn't realize it.
Hey, we got picture back. Thank you, tech crew, not only for fixing that, but also all the work you put in all weekend long. Thank you very much. We're just about ready to do our award ceremony, and thank you everyone for hanging with us. But I want to give everyone a chance to have their final word, final say on their various productions. So, Dustin, why don't we start with you in terms of what you hope people take away from watching The Mall Man?
Just that it's important to protect these spaces. That it's not really about spending your money in person. It's about interaction and meeting people, and especially for young people to conserve social spaces in person and not do all of your interaction online and not live your life through your phone. That's sort of the idea. I guess the only other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to thank Klamath Film for supporting independent filmmakers and for supporting regional filmmakers in the Northwest. So appreciate you having me and all of us there.
Thank you, Dustin. JT, any final thoughts on The Haunted Baby Carriage from Hell?
No, I'm just glad to be able to put it out there. And I mean, just for it being an LGBTQ horror film, it's, there's a resurgence happening now for queer horror and LGBTQ stories in the horror realm. And a lot of, LGBTQ audiences gravitate toward horror films because of different various reasons. They see themselves as the other or sometimes the final girl, and to be able to contribute to the conversation with this film has been something that's been important.
We also should note too, the realtor at the very start of your film has a connection to classic horror film.
She does. She was the star of Night of the Comet from 1984, as well as Chopping Mall, a movie that took place in a shopping mall in 1985.
So let's go down the line and talk about Duplicity. Final thoughts. We'll start at the end with Wayne, your overall experience. And now that you've got a chance to finally, at long last, see your performance, I know you've been bugging me like, hey, can you get on Nick's case about finishing this film already? I want to see what I did.
No, I enjoyed it very much. Do it over again tomorrow.
There you go. I think that's the shortest that we've ever heard you any time that we put you on the spot. We usually get a long diatribe out of Wayne. Thank you, sir. Lindsay, your final thoughts on being able to work on this project and getting to see your performance.
Well, this was just all so exciting and so lovely. And I'm so grateful to you guys for doing a project and bringing it to this small little town where I never thought that I would be able to act again because, my husband, he's in the Air Force. So we were kind of forced to move here, but now we are loving it. So thank you for bringing something like this here.
Carson, your thoughts on getting to see your film?
Yeah, so seeing Duplicity in final form just brings back all the memories of developing the story and building it out and creating it, and brings back the casting call that we did where I had an idea of what all the characters looked like and sounded like, but then as the people came in and started auditioning for the roles, they just stuck to those characters and brought them to life. And so seeing that in its final form is beautiful. And I wouldn't trade this cast for anything. And they've all got they've all got a special page in my book for the next project. They're all getting calls. Regardless of where they are, regardless of what they're doing, they're all getting calls saying, hey, we got a new project. We got a new character that we think is great for you. Might be written for you. So, yeah.
You're supposed to write it and then cast, Carson. Just FYI. And Nick, we'll leave the final words to you, sir, on your experience of delving into narrative. As you hear Carson saying that, are you thinking, dude, hell no, not again. Let's stick to doing TV ads.
Yeah. From a professional standpoint, Nick Alexander Films for the last 7 years have been telling stories. And so Duplicity will definitely be one of my favorite stories that I've told. Of course, there are so many projects that we do, but that was a favorite. We're excited for the future to create more videos and stories and do more narrative. And that's what's most exciting is that this is just the beginning. We're just getting started. So we're looking forward to doing more narrative films in the near future. And then just from a personal standpoint, if anyone that was involved in Duplicity could just stand up, I just want to give you a round of applause.
We have most of the cast here and crew and
Awesome. Thank you.
And thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Dustin, for joining us online. We appreciate it. Thank you, JT, for being here. Thank you to the whole Duplicity team. Duplicity, oh yeah. It's been a long weekend. Bear with me. And it's been a long weekend for our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, you just witnessed 3 days of some of the best filmmakers and films made in Oregon. We have $5,000 in prizes that we are now going to give out. But thank you, panelists, for being a part of this. Do give me just a quick minute because we do need to end one live stream and start the next. So bear with us just a moment and we will start with our award ceremony.